The air on Mars was thin and cold, tasting of rust and ashes. Leo Cruz moved through the broken bones of the city, his boots crunching on red dust and shattered glass. His squad moved behind him, 5 shadows in the eternal twilight of the ruins. They were all that was left. "Keep the noise down," Leo whispered into his helmet mic. His voice was rough from recycled air and too many fights. Power signatures at minimum. They're hunting. The hegemony had taken Mars 6 months ago. They were not aliens. They were men and women, but remade. Faster, stronger. They saw people like Leo as things to be swept away. History. Leo led them into the shell of a tall building. Out. Its top was gone, bitten off by some old weapon. The sky above was a dirty orange, streaked with the engine glow of hegemony patrol ships. They were here for one thing, an old army supply cache. Maybe some ammo, maybe some food. Maybe just a reason to keep going. "Contact," a soft voice said in his ear. It was the rookie Kyle. His suit was too clean. Movement. 2 o'clock. Allower Street. Leo dropped to one knee, his rifle rising to his shoulder. He saw them. A hegemony scout patrol. 4 figures in sleek gray armor, moving like ghosts through the rubble. They had not seen the squad yet. "Back out," Leo ordered, his voice low and flat, slow and quiet. "We're not fighting today." The squad began to pull back, melting deeper into the dark building. Leo kept his eyes on the scouts. Then he heard it. Sharp, high whine from behind him. He turned his head. Kyle had frozen. The kid's hand was clenched tight on his rifle, his knuckles white. In his panic, his suit's power cell had spiked, a sudden flare of energy that would scream on any enemy scanner. "Kyle," Leo hissed. "Down." Now? It was too late. The sound was not loud. It was a punch of air, a hard thump. A hypersonic spike from a hegemony sniper ripped through the far wall of the building. It did not hit Kyle. It did not hit any of them. The metal spike tore into the main support column 10 feet above Leo's head. The column exploded into shrapnel and dust. There was a groan of twisting metal, a crack like the world breaking. Leo looked up. Ceiling, 1,000 tons of permacrete and steel, was coming down. He tried to move, to dive, but there was nowhere to go. The world turned into a roaring, crushing darkness. The dust cloud bloomed outwards, swallowing the rest of the squad. They were thrown back by the force of the collapse. When the rumbling stopped, the silence was worse. Rita, the medic, scrambled to her knees. Her display screen was a mess of static and red warnings. One warning was steady and bright. It was Leo's life sign monitor. It showed a flat, unwavering line. On the street below, the gray figures of the hegemony patrol turned and began to move toward the building. Their weapons were up. Rita stared at the flat line on her screen. Then she looked at the others, their faces pale in the gloom. They were trapped inside a broken building. Their sergeant was dead, and the enemy was closing in. The command bunker was a tomb of cold metal and blue light. General Ada Shaw stood before the main display, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The screen showed a map of Earth. Red enemy icons swarmed over the blue of the oceans. They were past Jupiter. They were past the moon. They were here. A young officer spoke from a console. "The last orbital defense platform is gone, General. The hegemony fleet is beginning atmospheric entry." A dull thump echoed through the bunker. Dust sifted from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Another impact. They were hitting the surface now. Ada did not flinch. Her face was stone. Inside, she felt nothing but a cold, hollow failure. They had lost. The war was over. A side door hissed open. A man in a rumpled uniform walked in. Frank Dean was an intelligence officer. His eyes were tired. He held a small data chip. "I have something," Frank said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the hum of the computers. Ada did not turn. If it is another plea for surrender, they are not listening. It is not. Frank slotted the chip into a terminal. A stream of code filled a smaller screen. "We pulled this from a hegemony wreck at Jupiter. It is their command channel. The main one. The real-time link for their entire fleet." Now Ada turned. Spark of something, not hope, but its sharper cousin, lit in her eyes. "Can we break it?" Frank shook his head. "That is quantum locked. Unbreakable. We can listen, but we cannot talk." We cannot interfere. It is useless. Another impact shook the bunker. Console shorted out in a shower of sparks. Someone cried out. Ada stared at the flowing code. The spark in her eyes turned into a hard, cold flame. Not useless. She walked to a secure panel on the wall. She pressed her palm against it. A hidden door slid open, revealing a terminal marked with the single word backdraft. Frank followed her. What is that? A solution, Ada said, her fingers flying over the keys. A psionic scrambler. It targets the human mind. It does not break the encryption. It uses the signal as a carrier wave. It sends a pulse through it. It turns their own command channel into a weapon. Frank's face went pale. A mind weapon. That is, it's a nightmare. It is untested. It is banned. They burned our cities, Ada said, her voice low and hard. They glassed Mars. They are not here for a debate. They are here to wipe us from history. Her finger hovered over a final red button. This is our reply, General. Wait, Frank said, but it was too late. She pressed the button. There was no sound, no flash of light. But on the main display, the swarm of red icons near the moon stopped. Their formation broke. Few ships drifted, their movements becoming slow and confused. For a long moment, the command bunker was silent. They had done it. Then, a sharp, repeating beep came from Frank's console. He looked down. His blood ran cold. It is a distress call, he whispered. From the hegemony fleet? Ada asked, a grim smile on her lips. Frank looked up, his face ashen. No. It is an automated medical alert. He turned the screen toward her. The signal is from the Galilean medical station. The civilian refugee hospital near Jupiter. The screen displayed the station's status. All systems were nominal, except for one line. The line for total life signs read 0. The fallout was immediate and total. Galactic Council, a gathering of neutral human colonies, condemned Earth in a single, unified voice. They called General Ada Shaw a monster. They called the weapon an abomination. Once seen as ruthless conquerors, now played the victim. Their propaganda channels showed the silent, drifting medical station. 500,000 souls. Gone. Earth was alone. In a small, grim room deep in the bunker, Ada watched the council's verdict on a screen. Her face showed no emotion. Frank Dean stood nearby, his arms crossed. He had not slept. They have given the hegemony full legal authority to proceed, Frank said, his voice hollow. We are the villains now. The door hissed open. A man walked in. He was thin, his skin pale. Fresh scar cut across his cheek. He moved with a slow, careful grace, like something held together by will alone. Ada and Frank stared. It was Leo Cruz. You were declared dead, Ada said, her voice flat with shock. The report was wrong, Leo said. His voice was a dry rasp. They pulled me from the rubble. Hegemony Science Division. They had questions about human pain thresholds. He did not elaborate. He did not need to. The look in his eyes was enough. He placed a small black data chip on the table. I listened. While they worked, they have a weakness. A single point of failure? Frank picked up the chip. What is it? It's the Citadel, Leo said. It is not a ship. Ow. It is a fortress hidden in the asteroid belt. It is their command node. Their brain. Destroy it, and their fleet goes blind. It becomes a swarm of lost children. A flicker of the old fire returned to Ada's eyes. We have no fleet left to send. We do not need our fleet, Frank said slowly, a dangerous idea forming. He looked from the chip to Leo. We have their command frequency. You know their security protocols. Leo gave a single sharp nod. I stole them. I memorized them. Frank turned to Ada. The hegemony battleship Oblivion's Edge. It was damaged in the last fight. It was docked at the scrapyard at Ria for repairs. Skeleton crew. We can spoof a distress call. We can get on board. We can take it. Ada looked at the two men. One was a ghost, back from the grave. The other was a man drowning in guilt. It was a desperate, stupid plan. It was the only plan they had. Do it, she said. The mission was a blur of darkness and stolen moments. A rusty shuttle, a silent approach. The massive scarred hull of the hegemony battleship filled their view. Leo guided them, his voice calm as he recited security codes. They docked. They moved through the cold, gray corridors. The few crew members they found were quickly and quietly neutralized. They reached the bridge. The systems hummed to life under Frank's hands. The main engine ignited with a deep roar. They were moving. Setting course for the asteroid belt, Frank said, a tense smile on his face. We are actually doing this. Leo stood at the viewport, watching the stars. He did not smile. He was checking the ship's internal data logs, a habit from his old life. He pulled up the repair records, then the command history. His body went rigid. Frank, Leo said, his voice dangerously quiet. The damage report. Look at it. Frank called up the file. The Oblivion's edge had taken a hit to its primary comms array. A minor injury easily fixed. It had never needed to be here. This is wrong, Frank whispered, his blood turning to ice. He cross-referenced the data with the command logs they had used to plan the hijacking. The patterns matched perfectly. Too perfectly. It was not a coincidence. It was a design. Leo turned from the viewport, his face a mask of cold fury. The frequency you found, my capture, my escape, all of it, was a trail of breadcrumbs. Frank looked up, his eyes wide with horror. Xeris. He laid a trap. The Citadel is not a brain. It is a mouth. The stolen battleship, the Oblivion's Edge, shuddered as it was seized by the Citadel's docking clamps. The moment the ship settled, the trap was sprung. Red alarm lights flashed. A harsh, automated voice filled the bridge. Weapons lock detected, thrusters disabled, comms jammed. Through the main viewport, they saw heavy blast doors slamming shut, sealing them inside the vast hangar. On the upper gantries, the barrels of auto turrets spun to life, glowing red. They're going to cut us to pieces, Frank said, his hands flying over the dead controls. Not if we are not on the ship, Leo said. He grabbed his rifle. We go out there. It is our only move. He led the way to the airlock. The rest of the volunteer crew, 12 men and women with grim faces, followed. They spilled out into the cavernous hangar just as the turrets opened fire. Plasma bolts tore into the Oblivion's edge, shredding its hull. Move. To that service corridor, Leo yelled, pointing across the open deck. They ran. Plasma fire chewed up the floor around them. One of the crew, a woman named Lisa, was hit in the back. She fell without a sound. They did not stop. They fought their way through the Citadel's sterile gray corridors. Gemini Marines in advanced armor met them at every turn. The fighting was close and brutal. The air filled with the smell of ozone and blood. Their numbers dwindled with every firefight. Finally, only Leo and Frank were left. They reached a set of ornate double doors at the end of a long hallway. The command spire. Leo kicked the doors open. The room was wide and circular, with a clear wall looking out over the hangar and their burning ship. Commander Valerius stood there, his hands behind his back. He was a tall man with a calm, sharp face. He did not look surprised. Sergeant Cruz, Valerius said, I knew you would make it. The baseline human capacity for stubbornness is remarkable. You talk too much, Leo said, raising his rifle. Valerius smiled a thin, cold smile. This station is not a command node. It is a stage. Your execution is being broadcast live to the entire galaxy. The final proof of Earth's barbarism, a stolen ship, a desperate failed attack. As Valerius spoke, Frank moved to a control console. His eyes were not on the commander, but on the screens. He saw it. A massive broadcast array, active and sending a signal to every council world. He looked at Leo. They could not win this fight, but they could change the story. Leo understood. He shifted his aim from Valerius and fired 3 rounds into the command console next to him. Sparks erupted. Valerius flinched, his cool composure broken for a single second. He drew his own sidearm, a sleek, silver pistol. Frank slammed his datapad into the console port. He typed a single command. The station's internal systems flared to life under his control. He was hijacking the broadcast. The main viewer in the room switched from a hegemony symbol to a live feed from Frank S. helmet camera. It showed Leo bleeding and standing his ground. It showed Valerius, weapon drawn. The galaxy was no longer watching an execution. They were watching a firefight. Valerius saw the feed change. his face twisted in rage. He raised his pistol and fired. The shot hit Leo in the chest. The impact threw Leo back against the wall. A bloom of red spread across his chest. He slid to the floor, his rifle clattering away. On countless screens across human space, people watched him fall. They saw the cold face of Commander Valerius. They heard Frank's ragged breathing over the open coms. Valerius turned his pistol toward Frank. A meaningless gesture. You die now. The broadcast ends. Leo coughed, a wet, painful sound. He was not dead. Pushed himself up onto one elbow. His eyes locked with Frank's across the room. They held a final unspoken command. Frank understood. He typed one last sequence into his datapad. He was not targeting the broadcast. He was targeting the damaged reactor of the Oblivion's edge, still hot and unstable in the hangar below. Valerius took a step toward Frank, his finger tightening on the trigger. With a sudden final burst of strength, Leo lunged. He did not try to stand. He threw his body forward, wrapping his arms around Valerius's legs. The commander stumbled, his shot going wide, blasting a hole in the ceiling. "Let go, you animal." Valerius snarled, trying to shake him off. Leo held on. His grip was iron. He looked up at Valerius, blood on his lips. "We do not let go." Frank slammed the execute command. In the hangar bay, the core of the Oblivion's edge went critical. The light was blinding. A white-hot sun bloomed inside the station. The shockwave hit the command spire. The entire room shook.
Ow, the clear wall viewing the hangar shattered into a million pieces.
The force ripped Valerius from Leo's grasp and hurled him through the broken window. They both fell, tumbling into the fiery chaos of the docking bay. The live feed showed the fall. It showed Valerius, his perfect form swallowed by the inferno. It showed Leo Cruz, his broken body hitting the deck far below. His eyes, still open, stared directly into a maintenance camera. Then the feed died. Every screen in the galaxy went to black static. The silence was absolute. On the Hegemony command ship, the officers stared at their dead displays. Their leader was gone. Their fortress was a spanning cloud of debris. On Earth, in the deep bunker, General Ada Shaw watched the static. She said nothing. There were no cheers. A single report flashed on her screen. The Hegemony fleet had stopped its advance. In the council chambers, the politicians were quiet. The story of monsters and victims was gone, replaced by the image of a falling man. Frank Dean floated in an escape pod, the only thing to make it out. He was picked up by a neutral salvage ship days later. They asked him what happened. He had no words. He only saw the fall and the silence that followed. The war was not over, but the Hegemony's certainty was broken. Their moral shield was shattered. They had been beaten not by a superior weapon, but by a stubborn, brutal refusal to die quietly. Earth's retaliation was not a weapon. It was a man who would not let go. And the Galactic Council and all of humanity had watched it happen. They were left with only the echo of that silence, and the legend born from it.